Hello and welcome to the June 2020 layout update for the Trent Valley Railway. In this update we'll take a look at the Heljan Container Crane, we'll look at the work completed for the shuntneck siding. There'll be just enough space here for a single loco to sit in this shuntneck, and finally a look at the track work to get these container trains to and from the depot and the Fiddle yard. Go back up to the container depot, it can cross over onto the left hand side of the running line and then go back up the incline. So welcome back to another layout update for the Trent Valley Railway. This one will very heavily feature this container crane from Heljan. So without further ado, let's get straight into the update and I'll take you through the work to get this moving on the container depot. I've had this container crane stored away for quite some time now, and I'm finally excited to reveal that the Trent Valley Railway has a Heljan container terminal. So I've had this for a couple of years now, and in the background to building this layout I've been testing this using the base units that come in the box, and also having a look to make sure that the mechanisms, the gearing and the strings for the hoist and magnet are all working correctly, and I've been quite lucky with the one that I got a couple of years ago. So after testing all that, I'm now going to get down a section of track and just see if this container crane will work in situ here before carrying on down the rest of the container depot. So I'm in the middle of laying down here the first set of rails for the container crane. The base units here in grey with the rails set out did come in the box when I had this container crane. However, for the length I need along this container depot here, it doesn't come with enough base units in the box, and trying to find some of those extension packs now is probably near impossible. So I've got some code 100 flexi track here, which is this stuff now, which has been cut in half to create the same sort of single rail at the edge of the base that comes with the pack. So I'll now lay that on either side, get some glue down as well with the Copydex glue underneath for the rail at the top, and then hopefully wire it up and show you the progress at that point once these rails for this first section here are down on the container depot. Here I've now got those 2 lengths of track wired in and everything set up to give the container crane a test. After the successful test there on the first section of track, I've then continued laying the rails for the container crane down to the very end of the depot. All of this has been wired back up to the control unit, and in a short while I'll give this a test. In the background I've added in some spare containers and also some reach stackers. And at the very back of the container depot here, the rails stop short of the buffer stops for the container crane, because this is the area where the locos will arrive and detach from the container train here. So the Heljan Container Crane does not need to be above this section here. We'll now look at the control unit for the Heljan Container Crane. This is the control center for the Heljan Container Crane. This control unit comes in the box with the crane itself. It has its own power supply that I've fed into it through its own DC supply. Coming out of this control unit, the red and the black wires then go to those rails that I've just laid down either side of the container depot lines. And this then feeds the power into the crane and the hoist to operate it from this unit. I'm now just going to show you a few things for how this unit works. And first of all, looking at operating the gantry. So you can either press the right, which will move it towards the very back of the container depot, or either press the left. So those are the functions for the gantry. If we now look at the hoist, these are operated if you press the down. The hoist comes towards the near side here, and pressing north or the up arrow on the keypad there, and that goes towards the very back wall. To operate the hoist up and down, if I hold down on the function, pressing the down arrow takes it downwards, pressing the up arrow will take it back up, and you're also able to, if you need to turn the container around, spin the hoist using the left and right arrows. Finally, when I am connecting then to a container and I've lowered the hoist on top of the container, the M for magnet is pressed. This will then attach it to the container, and then you'll be able to move the container wherever else you want to across the depot. Once it's back down on the ground or on a wagon, pressing M will release that magnet and away the container crane can go. The last set of functions on this control unit are the lighting. So if I press on the G for gantry, this puts on the lighting for the gantry, and pressing it again will turn it off. The S is then for spotlight, where there are two spotlights behind the hoist mechanism. And what I've also done here is actually attached a sound module and written to that DCC decoder that's attached to the sound module the same CV settings as this control unit. So because the rest of the layout for the Trent Valley Railway is DCC sound, I thought it would be appropriate here also to have a bit of background sound for this container terminal. So when I press the S, it will do the spotlights and also provide some sound for when the container crane is moving and provide some warning sounds. Obviously those sounds are applied manually effectively, and I can leave those on as well for however long I want to, because sometimes they may put the warning sound on even when the container crane might not be moving anywhere, and actually it might just be the hoist that is moving around the container depot. So here's just another view of that with the container depot in action and the container crane moving along with those sounds in the background. So after completing the work there for setting up the Heljan Container Crane, I've moved down here to the other end of the container depot to look at completing the shunt neck here. So this is a little siding that will enable the locos to come off from the back of a container train, run up into this shunt neck, and then sit and wait for its next turn to take the container train back out of the depot. There'll be just enough space here for a single loco to sit in this shunt neck. Eventually I'll do some scenery work around this with a small access path and some signalling in here. And what you'll notice from these pictures is this is actually the second attempt at trying to get this shunt neck siding in here. The original alignment that I put in was a bit too close to the main lines running around and onto the inclines. So I've now made this a little bit more straighter, going off from the container depot junction off the main line, and I've added in one of the Rory buffer stops here as well. So in these final few pictures here, there's just a few shots of what some of the scenery may look like behind this area, and also what it looks like with the Class 68 here sat in the shunt neck, ready to take its next turn for the next departing container train. Now I've completed the track work for the container depot and also the shunt neck, I've been testing the container trains running from the Fiddle yard here back up to the container depot. Now I've set up the container depot so that the trains can run around and be taken back down, but I've also then got to do the same here. So you'll see that the container trains here have come in from the depot, entered the Fiddle yard, and I now need to run the loco round. So there's two things that I need to do down here. One is to add in a crossover so that when a Fiddle yard container train leaves to go back up to the container depot, it can cross over onto the left hand side of the running line and then go back up the incline. I've also added in the extra route that comes off to what will be another future storage area. But after these trains come down from the container depot, I've also put in some magnets underneath the Fiddle yard lines to allow for the decoupling of the loco. It will then run round and rejoin the other end of the container train to take it back up to the container depot. So I've got a few more lines to put in on the bottom for the Fiddle yard there with the magnets, and then all as well with the operating the container trains to and from the depot. The next steps here will be to develop the scenery alongside the container depot. I've already got some things to put in, such as cable trunking, line side boxes, some overhead line masts, and also a tunnel portal at the very back end of the layout here. So I'm hoping to start progressing with that over the next few months, but in the meantime, please do comment, like, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. There'll be future videos now coming up with running sessions and more layout updates in the next few months for the Trent Valley Railway. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.